Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, thanks for coming by, and if you've been here before, thanks for coming back again. I'm Angie, a mixed media textile artist, and my channel is all about learning, sharing, and inspiring. Today's video is how to make a design wall. Now, if you're a textile artist or a quilter, a design wall is a very useful thing to have in your studio. This is one I have here. This is my main design wall. And you can use it for hanging up your work as you're working on it, to step back and take a look, and to, if you do improvisational work, you can hang it up, put the pieces up, and, design your quilt as you go. I also use my design walls for display walls if I'm not designing on them. As I said, this is my main wall, and it's approximately 7 feet by 7 feet. Today we'll be building a smaller wall, which will be mostly used as a design wall. So now let's get into what it takes to build a wall. You don't really need a lot of materials. Most of them are fairly easy to come by, so let's go ahead and take a look. The first thing you need is to decide what you want to build your wall out of. Now, I've used several different materials, and the first one I've used for my previous walls have been this foam insulation board. It's about a 1/2 inch thick, okay, and it's made out of a very dense foam that they use to insulate walls where you don't have access to the studs. It comes with a shiny aluminum side, and the other side has paper that has all the manufacturer's information on it. What's nice about this foam insulation is it's very, very lightweight. It's inexpensive. A 4x8 sheet costs approximately $15 or under $15, and you can easily find it at any of your big box home improvement stores. As I said, I've used this for my previous design walls, but what I don't like about it is when you put a pin in it, the pins don't really stay where you put them. They're easily moved, as you can see here, and that really bothered me. But other than that, it really made a good design wall. The wall that we will build today is made out of a different material. It's what I've recently made this wall out of, and it's called Homosote. This is a small piece that I have left over from building my wall, and it's a compressed paper product, and I really like it because once I put a pin in it, the pin stays where I put it. It doesn't wiggle around. It doesn't kind of tear up the surface. With the foam insulation board, the pins would eventually start tearing up the surface, and that really bothered me. But with the Homosote, that doesn't happen. So I really like that for a wall, but it does have a few disadvantages. Mainly, it's extremely heavy, much heavier than the foam insulation. And also, it's about 3 times the cost. A 4x8 sheet runs between $30 and $40. And finally, it's not readily available at your big box home improvement stores. You will have to go to a specialty lumber store to get this. Now, if you go onto Homosote's website, homosote.com, you can put in your zip code, and they will let you know if there's a retailer available near you. If not, the foam insulation works just fine. I'm lucky in that there's a retailer available a few miles from me. They deliver it for free. The only thing they don't do is cut it. And speaking of cutting it, you can cut this with a utility knife or a jigsaw. I prefer to use a jigsaw. It's much faster. It's a lot messier, but it's easier to cut. With the foam insulation, a utility knife is all you need to cut it. So let's take a look at the other materials you will need. You will need something to cover your board, and in the past I've used felt, and that's worked just fine. The board we will be building today and the board behind me, I've used flannel. I purchased a white flannel online, and the reason I did that is the felt only comes 72 inches wide, and I would have had to seam it for this 7 by 7 foot board, and I didn't really want to have a seam in it. So I was able to find flannel online at 108 inches wide. So that's what I will be using. Now for both the felt and the flannel, I did have to use 2 layers of it because the gray color of the Homosote showed through with just 1 layer. So I do have 2 layers behind me, and I will be using 2 layers to build a board today. And if you're using a Homosote, you will also need a staple gun and some staples. And this is my favorite little staple gun. It's small and easy to handle, lightweight, and it doesn't take a lot of hand strength to use it. Actually, right now my hands are really acting up on me because I've been doing a lot of work, and as you'll see, I can still use this stapler. It's made by Arrow, and it's the JT27 model, and it's under $10 at the big box stores. So I highly recommend this. I use it for so many different things in my studio. You'll also need some scissors, possibly a staple remover, and if you're using the foam insulation, you'll need some sturdy pins like these T-pins I have here because you won't be able to staple into it. Now with that being said, let's move on over to the wall and I'll show you how to put it together. Okay, as you can see, I already have the Homosew attached to the wall, and I've also gone ahead and marked the center of each side with a Sharpie. Just a small black line you should be able to see there. And I've cut the fabric to a little over an inch larger than the dimension of the Homosew, and I've marked the centers of each side of the fabric with pins. This way I can line the centers of the fabric up to the center of the board and not get things torqued. So now I'll go ahead and start attaching. So here I'm starting at the top of the board, and I will take the center of the fabric that I've marked with a pin and match it up with the center mark that I have on the Homosew and put a staple in. I will then repeat this at the bottom, pulling the fabric tightly to remove any sagging. And then do the same thing for each side. I will match up the pin on the fabric to the mark on the Homosew and place a staple. Now once I have each side secured in the center, I will go back to the top, and starting at the center and moving out to the side, I will staple the fabric in place. As I'm stapling, I'm also pulling the fabric tightly out to the side so that I can pull out any wrinkles and any sagging. So I continue working my way around the Homosew board, starting at the top center and working out to the ends. As I staple the fabric, I pull it tightly, and this helps to prevent wrinkles and sagging. When you get to the sides, you want to pull the fabric tightly, but you also want to either pull it to the top if you're working from the center towards the top, or pull it slightly downward if you're working from the center to the bottom. You may need to remove that initial staple that you put in the center. Those staples were just placeholders so that you could keep everything lined up. So if you need to remove them, go ahead and remove them and continue working from the center out. Once you've completed the stapling, give everything a once over, make sure it looks good, and if you need to remove and fix any staples, go ahead and do that before we start trimming away the excess. To remove the excess fabric, I basically just take my scissors and run it along the edge of the Homosew board as I trim away the extra fabric. Do this on all four sides, and then your design wall is basically completed. Okay, so the wall's all finished now, and you can see that really wasn't that difficult. The hardest part for me was getting the Homosew on the wall because I usually work alone in my studio, and that Homosew is, as I said earlier, it's quite heavy. So I had to improvise, and I stacked up 2 sets of 5-gallon buckets on top of each other. First lifted the Homosew on top of the buckets, and then I was able to woman handle it up onto the wall and put a couple of screws in until I could get it totally screwed in. But if you're working by yourself, you learn how to improvise and get things done when you want them done instead of waiting for someone else, because I truly hate to wait for someone else to do something when I'm ready to do it. But if you're using the foam insulation, instead of stapling like I was doing with the Homosew, you would just take and place pins, and everything else is exactly the same. So just use your sturdy pins to hold the fabric onto the foam insulation. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please take a moment and give the video a thumbs up. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any new videos that I upload. If you've been wanting to build a design wall, you now see how easy it is and how inexpensive it is. So I hope you take a moment and go ahead and build one for yourself. And if you do, please leave me a comment below and let me know how I went for you. Well, that's it for today's video. I hope to see you back here again soon. But until then, please have a beautiful day.